We'll go ahead and get started. Happy Thursday, everyone. I'm Hamza Tariq, Director of Marketing at Sirius Support. Welcome to our session on preparing for US mandates for human customer support. By way of introduction, today's session is designed for leaders navigating the shift from AI-first support to compliance-driven human support. Hosting today's session is Craig Mills, CEO and co-founder of Sirius Support. Craig brings over 20 years of customer support leadership experience, serving organizations and customers around the world. He'll walk us through the pending legislation and share practical recommendations on how customer support leaders can adapt and stay ahead in this evolving regulatory landscape. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming Craig Mills.
Thank you, Hamza. Welcome, everybody. Great to see so many people join us today. As Hamza mentioned, I'm Craig Mills, CEO of Sirius Support. Based on the number of questions we've been getting from customers about emerging regulations and what they mean for support operations, we've established this as a monthly update series built specifically for customer support leaders who want to stay informed and ready as the rules evolve. Each month, we'll be bringing you the latest, unpack the implications, and share actionable guidance to help you prepare before the mandates arrive. Today's focus is on a major shift already reshaping how organizations think about service delivery. The move from AI-first support to compliance-driven human support. For years, automation has led the conversation. How do we scale faster, handle more volumes, lower costs? But what we're seeing now from the US regulators is a clear signal that human fallback is no longer optional. This represents a turning point, not just for compliance, but also for risk management and customer trust. At Sirius Support, we've built our reputation on helping organizations quickly adapt to change, whether that means scaling fast-growing businesses, supporting government agencies in disaster recovery, or now helping enterprises prepare for new regulatory requirements as they emerge. We're adept at rapid situation assessments and activation, ensuring when conditions shift, whether driven by growth, crisis, or in this case, compliance, our clients can respond confidently and maintain continuity. You'll see plenty of data and insights today, because at Sirius, accountability and transparency are in our DNA. We believe in measurement, clarity, and performance that can be proven, not just promised. My goal today is to leave you with both a clear understanding of where the regulatory momentum stands and is moving, and practical ways to prepare your organization for what's next. With that, let's start by looking at the current landscape, what's changed in the last month, and what signals we're seeing for the months ahead. So why does all of this matter? Well, according to McKinsey, AI tools now resolve up to 80% of customer support tickets across the industry. In some digital native sectors, that number is going to be even higher. As practitioners, we've all moved towards automation, getting AI to do as much as possible. That's an extraordinary efficiency gain. It's reduced average handle times, it's lowered costs, and allowed companies to scale service without scaling headcount. For many organizations, AI has become the backbone of customer experience. But here's where the tension lies. A 2025 CX Today survey found that 61% of customer experience leaders actually support government mandates requiring guaranteed access to a human agent. Think about that for a second. These aren't frustrated customers calling for change. These are industry leaders themselves saying the pendulum has swung far too much in the way of automation. Why? Because AI resolves issues quickly. It often struggles with edge cases or empathy or emotional nuances, the very moments of customer intimacy that define brand trust. And customers feel it. A PwC consumer study earlier this year reported that nearly 60% of US consumers believe companies have lost touch with the human element in customer service. Other research firms from Gartner echoes that, showing that when customer interaction is absent in complex cases, human interaction rather is absent in complex cases, customer churn risk increases by over 25%. Regulators are responding to that frustration. The message coming from Washington or Sacramento and other capitals is clear. It's not about eliminating AI, it's about restoring accountability and human accessibility. So the question for your organization is this: if new laws require a one-press access to a live human agent, are your escalation paths strong enough to withstand that scrutiny? That's what this entire series is about, helping you assess where you stand today and prepare for the environment that's fast approaching. Now, if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, this story isn't just about what's being passed yet, it's about the pressure that is building. The short version: there is still no US law requiring human agents for customer support, but the pace of scrutiny and policymaking is accelerating. California continues to set the tone. Governor Newsom signed 2 AI-related bills in mid-October. SB 243 focused on transparency for companion chatbots, and AB 853, which broadens AI transparency obligations, but specifically excludes most customer service chatbots. So while these laws stop short of mandating human access, they expand oversight and signal where the legislations are headed. At the federal level, Keep Call Centers in America Act remains in committee. Progress has obviously been stalled with the federal shutdown, but that includes a lot of the AI and consumer protection bills. Meanwhile, states like Maine and New York are continuing to act independently, introducing disclosure laws that reinforce a common message. Customers deserve clarity and accountability when dealing with AI. So while no one is being forced yet to offer a human agent, the momentum and the scrutiny are unmistakable. Regulators are aligning around transparency, and the next logical step, access, feels increasingly close. That's why, from a readiness standpoint, it's smart to start thinking about where your human support infrastructure is now, rather than waiting for those mandates to come through. Whether it's compliance or brand trust or just good old customer satisfaction, the organizations preparing for their human layer today are going to be the ones best positioned tomorrow. And that's exactly why we're here with these monthly updates, to help you monitor the landscape, anticipate the impact, and make sure you're ready when regulations turn to requirements. Now, let's talk about the risk exposure, because it's broader than most organizations realize. According to the Phonemon Institution, the average cost of a non-compliance fine in the US is $4.4 million. That's before you factor in legal costs or remediation and the time and distraction that regulatory action brings. For larger enterprises operating in multiple jurisdictions, that risk multiplies quickly. And then there's the cost that doesn't show on the balance sheet right away, the loss of trust. The Edelman Trust Barometer shows that 67% of consumers will switch brands when trust is broken. In the context of customer support, that trust can be lost in an instant. One failed escalation, one opaque chatbot experience, or one customer who can't reach a human when it really matters. Disclosure failures, unclear escalation paths, or inconsistent transparency directly erode that trust. And once lost, it's expensive and slow to rebuild. There's also operational exposure. If new rules mandate that companies provide access to US-based or human-certified support, organizations may suddenly need to expand or relocate staff to meet those requirements. That can mean higher labor costs, longer hiring cycles, and a need to rapidly retrain or vendor transitions. Then you've got commercial risk, which is often overlooked. Buyers, partners, and investors are already starting to ask for proof of compliance readiness. RFPs are increasingly asking questions around AI transparency, escalation guarantees, and human fallback procedures. In other words, compliance is moving from a back office function to a frontline sales and signal and trust signal. So the real question becomes, do you treat compliance as a cost center, something you react to when forced, or could it be a competitive differentiator? The companies that lean into readiness now, who demonstrate accountability, transparency, and resilience, will be the ones regulators trust, consumers stay loyal to, and competitors chase. So let's shift gears and talk about what readiness actually looks like. Strong compliance playbook isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's going to be essential for every organization operating in customer support. Here's what that playbook should include. First, you need to map out which rules apply to your industry and your geography. Start by identifying where your customers are and which jurisdictions could have oversight, any federal or state or even international if you've got global customers. For example, what applies to a health tech company under HIPAA will differ from what applies to an e-commerce brand under consumer protection law. Knowing your exposure zones early helps prevent scrambling later. Second, standardize your disclosures and escalation paths. If your AI interacts with customers, your disclosures should be consistent, clear, concise, and easy to verify. The same goes for escalation. If a customer requests a human, your service level commitment should be written, tracked, and auditable. A regulator isn't going to accept it's handled differently in this region or that as an answer. Third, implement real-time monitoring and auditing to ensure consistency. This is where most organizations fall short. Gartner recently reported that 73% of firms do not have real-time monitoring in place for AI disclosures. That's a huge blind spot. It means the majority of companies couldn't easily prove compliance, even if they were doing the right things operationally. Monitoring needs to be active, not reactive. Fourth, prepare for annual certifications or self-assessment that some laws may soon require. We're already seeing language in draft legislation that mirrors a SOC 2 or a GDPR style certification models, where companies have to show, not just say, that they're compliant. Building that documentation muscle now will pay off later. And finally, I'd ask you this question. If a regulator audited you today, could you prove that every AI interaction was disclosed and that every human fallback request was honored? If the answer isn't an immediate yes, that's the signal to start building your playbook today. The organizations that get this right will not only avoid the fines, but also gain trust with customers, regulators, and partners. That's where readiness becomes reputation and where compliance becomes a real competitive advantage. This quote really captures the mood of our industry right now. Laws should mandate the right to speak to a human. And that's interesting, as this isn't just coming from regulators or policymakers anymore. As I mentioned earlier on, it's coming from the industry itself, coming from our peers. Pendulum has swung far too far towards automation and customers, automation and automating that for customers. And the professionals who serve them are calling for a reset. And so you can feel the alignment building when customers, practitioners, and policymakers all start to speak in the same language, that momentum becomes unstoppable. We've seen the pattern before in data privacy or cybersecurity or accessibility. First, it's an expectation, then it becomes a differentiator, and finally, it becomes a regulatory requirement. And that's exactly where we are today with human access in customer support. The real strategic question every organization should be asking is this: if your competitors start marketing their compliance, promoting guaranteed human access as part of their brand promise, how will you position yourself? Because that shift is coming. In fact, some forward-thinking brands are already running pilots where they feature a human guaranteed support badge. Not because it's required yet, but because it builds trust, credibility, and regulatory readiness. The companies that move here first will often own the narrative. They'll be seen not as reacting to policy, but as leading the evolution of what responsible, human-centered AI support looks like. For years, our industry has operated under a simple assumption that we often call the 80-20 model. Roughly 80% of the tickets could be handled by AI or automation, while the remaining 20% would escalate to human agents. That model worked beautifully for cost optimization. I've been there with CFOs. Reduce costs is the number one answer. It allowed leaders such as ourselves to scale support experience while controlling headcount and focusing on human talent on high value or emotionally complex issues. But that old model is now being tested. Under the new regulatory direction, human fallback is no longer going to be optional. It's expected and likely soon required. According to Forrester, 45% of firms currently rely on AI alone for more than 70% of their customer interactions. Organizations are the ones most at risk. When mandates come into effect, they'll face immediate exposure, not because AI failed, but because their human layer isn't built to flex. And this isn't just about compliance risk, it's about resilience. If tomorrow 40% of your AI handled tickets suddenly needed to be routed to a human, how would your operation cope? You scale trained, brand aligned human capacity within hours or days, not months. Because that's what regulators and customers are ultimately looking for, a reliable human safety net. The future of customer support isn't about abandoning AI, it's about building scalable blended models where automation and people work together seamlessly. The organizations that win won't be those that automate the fastest, but those that can flex the fastest, expanding or contracting their human layer in real time without losing quality or compliance. That's where agility becomes your competitive advantage. So let's talk about what we can do with all of this. The good news is that there are practical strategies to add human capacity without ballooning your costs. This isn't about overbuilding teams or putting hundreds of agents on standby. It's about designing flexibility into your operating model. First, you could partner with on-demand US-based agents. Many organizations are building relationships with elastic support partners, teams that can activate within days, not months, to meet compliance requirements or handle a sudden spike in volume. Second, you can use shared pools that multiple business units within your organization or different product lines can access. Instead of siloed teams, shared pools create efficiency and coverage across multiple time zone and functions. It's a smart way to scale without duplicating headcount. Third, consider follow-the-sun staffing. By distributing teams globally, you can maintain live human support around the clock without overburdening any single one geography. And that not only improves customer experience, but provides redundancy if local capacity becomes constrained. And fourth, deploy predictive scheduling and demand modeling. AI can actually help here by forecasting ticket spikes and matching coverage to expected demand, ensuring you're right-sized hour by hour. These are real levers that customer support leaders can pull today, not in theory, but in practice. And the market is clearly moving. The International Association of Outsourcing Professionals recently reported that 70% of BPO leaders plan to expand their US-based hiring this year. And that tells you everything you need to know. Demand for compliant domestic human capacity is rising and fast. And that brings us to a critical question. If new regulations took effect tomorrow, do you already have a contingency partner who could add trained US agents within 30 days? For organizations that don't, this is the momentum to start identifying those partners, testing those relationships, and putting readiness plans in place. Because when the mandate arrives, agility won't be optional. It'll be the difference between compliance and chaos. As organizations move towards compliance-ready customer support, it's not just about adding human capacity. It's about evolving the routing logic that determines when and how to add humans. In the old automation mindset, the goal was to contain as many tickets as possible within AI. The success metric we've all talked about for a while has been deflection. But in the new model, the success metric becomes appropriate escalation, knowing when AI is good enough and when it isn't. Here are 4 principles every routing model needs to include. First, when AI confidence is low, the system should immediately escalate to a human. Don't let customers repeat themselves or get trapped in loops. Hand them off gracefully before that frustration builds. Second, customers should always have explicit transfer options to request a human at any time. Regulators are likely to require this, but even before they do, it's just good CX design. Giving customers agency builds trust. Third, high risk or high value cases should default to human handling from the start. Things like billing disputes or healthcare inquiries or enterprise account issues. The reputational risk of mishandling those far outweighs the savings of automation. And fourth, your system must fail safe, meaning it should never block or deny access to a human, even if your process breaks or your rule misfires. Think of it as an emergency exit in your customer experience architecture. Here's why this matters so much. PwC found that 89% of customers will leave a brand after just 2 bad service experiences. That's almost everyone. So escalation logic isn't just a compliance issue, it's a revenue protection strategy. Every failed handoff, every broken chatbot loop isn't just a bad experience, it's lost lifetime revenue. The real question to ask your team is this: do your systems actually know when AI is good enough and when it isn't? Because in a compliance-driven environment, that awareness, that ability to hand off intelligently becomes the new measure of maturity. All right, let's bring this to some practical items. Here's what a phased roadmap to compliance readiness looks like. Think of it as your playbook from we should probably start thinking about this to we're globally compliant and ready for anything. So first up, assess the gaps. Before you do anything, get clear on where you stand today. Map your current support flows, your current customer journeys, your AI escalation paths, your disclosure language, and identify where the cracks are. You can't fix what you can't see, and most companies haven't looked closely yet. Next, design and pilot your fallback. Don't wait for legislation to force your hand. Build and test a fallback to human workflow now. Even a small pilot gives you data, proof points, and confidence that your systems can adapt. Then phase 2, scale and certify compliance. Once you've proven the model works, scale it across your organization. Document it, audit it, and make sure you can prove consistency. When certification requirements arrive, and they will, you'll be ready instead of scrambling. Next, optimize and stress test capacity. Run simulations. Ask, what if AI goes down for a day? What if 40% of our tickets suddenly need human handling? The goal isn't perfection, but it is resilience under pressure. Then you need to globalize your approach. As new regulations roll out in the EU, the UK, and parts of Asia, the smartest organizations are harmonizing compliance across all of those jurisdictions. Framework, one standard, many markets. And here's the reality check. CCW Digital recently found that only 22% of firms have even piloted a compliance fallback model. That means nearly 80% are still waiting, hoping the rules will clarify before they act. But here's the thing, by the time the rules are final, it's too late for you to start from zero. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you waiting for the law, or are you piloting now so you're ready when it lands? Because readiness isn't just compliance, it's a competitive advantage. And this roadmap is how you get there before everybody else does. So let's take a moment to recap what we've covered and where all this points next. First, US regulations are clearly moving towards human fallback. The writing's on the wall. Customers must have access to a human, and that access must be provable. And don't think this is just US regulations. We will see the other countries, other regions follow the US lead on this very quickly, I believe. Second, compliance and customer trust are no longer separate conversations. They've merged. How you meet regulatory expectations will directly shape how customers perceive your brand. Compliance has become the new trust currency. Third, the old 80-20 AI to human model, 80% handled by AI, 20% escalated to humans, is evolving fast. The next generation of customer support isn't about choosing between automation or empathy. It's about designing a system where both work in perfect sync, scalable, compliant, and ready for anything. That's exactly why the phased roadmap we discussed is so powerful. It gives you a path to transform without disruption. Step by step, you can evolve your operation, strengthen your fallback capacity, and build trust before mandates arrive. And here's the reality check. Salesforce research shows that 71% of customers expect the ability to talk to a human at any point in their journey. That's not a niche preference or a legacy expectation. That's the new baseline. Customers want both. They want the speed of AI and the safety of a human connection. The companies that deliver that balance will redefine what great service looks like. So as we look ahead, the opportunity isn't just to stay compliant, it's to lead the industry toward a model of humanized AI support that customers actually trust and love. That's the future we're building, and it's one every forward-thinking support organization should start creating now. Before we wrap up, let me just share a quick perspective on who we are at Sirius Support and why this conversation matters so much to us. Sirius Support is a global BPO partner, trusted by organizations in some of the most heavily regulated sectors like finance, health, fintech, and beyond. Compliance isn't just an add-on for us, it's built into our operating model. From data handling to escalation protocols, we design every process to meet the highest standards of accountability and transparency. We offer flexible staffing across the US, nearshore, or global locations, giving clients the reach and agility they need to meet the evolving regulations without overextending resources. Our clients trust us because we keep performance visible, measurable, and consistent. And that's reflected in one key metric, a 95% client retention rate year after year. The takeaway is simple. We don't just provide outsourcing agents. We deliver compliance-ready, customer-centric support that scales with your business. That's what makes Sirius different. And it's exactly that kind of capability that companies will need as these new rules take shape. Let me give you a quick example of what that looks like in practice. One of our long-term clients, Fi, the leading smart collar company for pets, came to us just before their seasonal peak a few years ago. They were growing at an incredible pace. Orders were surging, new customers were coming online every day, and their internal support team were just completely maxed out. They knew Black Friday would push them over the edge if they didn't act fast. We partnered with Fi that summer to get ahead of the curve, and within just a few weeks, we'd scaled their team from 3 agents to more than 20, fully trained, brand aligned, and ready to handle the rush. When peak season hit and volume spiked, Fi's support operation didn't just hold steady. They achieved a 98% customer satisfaction score right through Black Friday, one of the toughest stress tests for any brand can face. That's the power of planning early and building flexible, scalable, compliance-ready support. It doesn't just keep you out of risk. It helps your brand shine under pressure and deliver exceptional experiences when it matters most. That's what readiness looks like, turning pressure into performance and growth into loyalty. Before we close today's session, let's talk about where you can go from here and how we can help you take those next practical steps. First, a regulatory readiness assessment. This gives you a clear picture of your current support model, how it aligns with those emerging US and global mandates. We'll pinpoint exactly where your compliance gaps are and what actions you can make, audit ready and future-proof. It's fast, precise, and actionable. Second, an ROI calculator. This tool lets you model the financial impact of augmenting your in-house AI support with flexible human coverage. It quantifies not just the cost savings, but the value of resilience. how to meet rising customer expectations today while preparing for tomorrow's rules. Third, a strategy session. This is where we'll calibrate directly with your leadership team. We'll map your support strategy, compliance readiness, and growth objectives into one unified plan, tailored to your industry, scale, and goals. According to Deloitte, early moves in compliance cut their operational costs by nearly 30% compared to late adopters. That's proof that proactive beats reactive every time. So the message here is simple. Acting now isn't about avoiding penalties, it's about building advantage. I'd encourage you to start with one of these steps, whether it's the assessment, the ROI calculator, or a strategy session, and begin turning compliance readiness into a genuine competitive edge. The organizations that prepare early won't just comply, but they'll lead. So as we close, regulations requiring human support are on their way. Human fallback is fast becoming the new standard for trust and compliance. At Sirius Support, we're here to help you prepare, scale, and stay ahead, turning readiness into real competitive advantage. Again, I'm happy to jump on a call with you and discuss your specific requirements. Just to indicate here you can raise your hand in the room, and one of the team will reach out. We'll get some time scheduled for us. And then finally, remember, the future belongs to those organizations that act early and build confidently. Thank you for joining us today and for being part of this important conversation. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month for the next update.